Continuing our conversation here on News Talk with D.C. Police Chief Kathy Lanier. She's with us for the hour. It's great to have you there. If you'd like to participate in our conversation with the Chief, dial in now. Those of you watching in the 10 o'clock hour, that's when we're live. That's when we can take calls. By the way, let me announce now that in 2 weeks, we're moving to 11 a.m. The show moves. News Talk will air live at 11 a.m.
And you can buy me lunch after, please.
Happy to do it. Monday, as long as I don't run afoul of any rules or regulations. Starting Monday, August 31st, News Talk comes your way live at 11 a.m. each weekday morning. Phone lines open here as we continue to talk with Chief Lanier, 703-387-1020. That is our number. Again, 703-387-1020. That's the number here. Is the synthetic drug situation fueling the violence that we're seeing in the district right now? And for people who don't know what synthetic drugs are, talk to us about what is a new or maybe kind of sort of new, whatever you want to call it, drug opportunity that's out there, but very, very bad situation.
So certainly it is driving violence. There's no question that some of the violence is attributed to it. It's not the #1 driver, but it is definitely, I mean, you see what we have, the information we put out. We had a person high on synthetic cannabinoids last week that just randomly punched 5 people or 6 people in the face. 5 of the 6 were women. We've had stabbings, we've had assaults, we've had I've witnessed people on this under the influence of this drug, many of them. It is just, it is surpassing PCP as one of the most dangerous drugs that I've ever seen. The number of people that we're seeing under the influence and overdosing on this is staggering. DC Fire Emergency Services put out a statistic that they transported 450 overdoses from this drug alone in 1 month. So that's 450 times in 1 month that our ambulance system was busy transporting people overdosed on these drugs. That has an impact on the safety of everybody else in our community. So it's a staggering impact on all of us, public safety-wise. But the reaction is different from everyone. So it is an inert leaf that is sprayed with very dangerous chemicals. Those chemicals over the years, it started hitting the streets in like 2008. Initially, what we saw, it was marketed a lot towards kids, so we saw a lot of kids using it. A lot of kids getting sick, vomiting, very rapid heartbeat, getting transported to the hospital, unconscious sometimes. But now the chemicals have changed, and the reaction of the users have changed. And we're seeing more and more adults. We're seeing people smoking more and having more severe reactions. So the reaction ranges from extremely violent, rapid heartbeat, adrenaline going, very high core body temperature, which is dangerous for the person using as well, to completely unconscious, almost like a zombie, literally. I've seen people under the influence of this drug that I've described to others as it's almost like someone has just unplugged their brain. It just stops working, and they're almost just paralyzed. It's a terrible drug.
Cheap? Is that part of it?
Very cheap. It is disproportionately impacting our poor communities. So homeless folks, they can buy 1 rolled cigarette of this stuff for $1. And now we're seeing even a more dangerous crossover is people are buying the single cigarette of the stuff and they're dipping it in PCP. So now you're seeing even a more significant impact. A lot of jurisdictions don't realize that the reaction they're seeing to these drugs is actually the synthetic cannabinoids. They believe it's PCP. According to DEA, a lot of people think that it's not synthetics. They think it's the PCP, but it is, in fact, the synthetics that is giving this reaction.
Where's it coming from, and what are you attempting to do to I assume it's coming in from somewhere else. It's not being made.
China. It is coming from China, exclusively it was created and marketed globally from China. It is being shipped into the United States, and now there are wholesalers within the United States. Initially, we saw a lot of businesses selling it. We've now cracked down on the businesses, but it is already a street-level drug. It is being sold on the streets. We make lots and lots of arrests, but none of those cases are being prosecuted. So it really doesn't pay for me to continue to arrest people because the laws have not kept up with the chemicals. So right now we arrested 68 people for sale of the synthetics on the street, sale and possession of the drug on the street, and none of those cases have been prosecuted.
Because they don't have an exact, like, I mean, does the law have to list every chemical?
It has to, the chemical compound has to be scheduled as a prohibited drug in the code, in the criminal code. And because they have constantly changed the chemicals slightly, it has kept one step ahead of the code. But one of the things we said at this summit with the chiefs from across the country, because New York is having a significant problem. New York is referring to it as weaponized marijuana. Because of the attacks on police and the assaults, is the federal government. Somebody has to do something, and they've got to do it now.
So is it a national law that hasn't kept up, local law?
Well, it's a federal code, so it's going to be on the schedule. DEA is working to try and schedule the drug as an illegal compound.
So it's not like the D.C. Council could meet in an emergency session and be continually updating.
That's correct. That's correct.
This is something where the feds must move.
Yes. So what the district can do and is doing, and again, the mayor has asked for this, as has the entire group of major city chiefs, is that a large population of the users right now are people who are out on release in the community under parole, probation, or some sort of supervision. Because their regular drug screening does not include screening for this drug, a lot of addicts that were using other drugs are now using this drug because they can pass a drug screen. And I've had them tell me that to my face, so I know that this is actually happening. There is a legitimate, an accurate drug screen that can be used for this, and the D.C. Pretrial Services is going to start screening for that, so that will help us tremendously.
To the phones, line 2 first. It's you, Christopher. Hello, welcome. You're on the air. Hi, caller. Christopher, are you there? We'll find Christopher and we'll get him back, and we'll put his call on the air. Chief, is this the toughest challenge or set of challenges you've faced? And you've been in the department for a long time. Started on Georgia Avenue, as we've talked about in the past. You've been chief now coming up on 8.5 years. Is this the toughest challenge you've faced?
You know, it's not in a way, because we had much worse issues. If you remember 2008, 2009 with the gang violence, just random shootings with innocent bystanders and children being shot. You remember in Trinidad, over a single weekend we had 11 people murdered in the city back in 2009. So this is what makes this difficult for us, is that we've seen the city get so much safer over the years, and violent crime is down so dramatically. People are not used to this and shouldn't be used to it. And so, trying to reassure the community that we are going to get this back under control and bring these numbers down, which I believe we will, is really difficult right now, because this is not what our people in our communities are used to anymore. This is a region.
The people's travel is city to suburb, suburb to suburb. People are mobile. Are the things that we're talking about as applicable to the region as they are to the city, given how people move? And you might live in the suburbs but work downtown. You live in the suburbs and recreate and hang out downtown. What's going on in the first ring of suburbs, say? Is it this?
I think if you look at the things that are going on in Prince George's, Montgomery, even over in Northern Virginia, we're all kind of dealing with a lot of the same issues. At the Major City Chiefs Conference, the high-capacity magazines, the non-fatal shootings, the violent crime upticks, we're seeing that all across the country, and suburbs are not immune.
Patrick Madden looked at the numbers. He looked at the homicides to date, the reporter from WAMU, and he found one that seemed to be where you could say the synthetic drug and the violence were linked, but he only found the one.
Well, so a lot of the information that is contained in a prosecution of a criminal case doesn't include social information, and drug information is sometimes not included in that. I can tell you that I know for a fact, and once we make an arrest in a case, I'm not going to discuss specifics in a case because it just jeopardizes the case. I can tell you I know for a fact that synthetics have been mentioned as the user either is using, was using, or had been recently using, if not under the influence at the time involved in a homicide in at least 4 cases this year. And we believe that there are others, but we just don't have that, that supporting statement. But What I will tell you is that pretrial services just recently tested all violent crime offenders for a 3-week period in Washington, D.C. So of the, I believe, 136 people that were tested that committed violent crimes, 20% of them tested positive for synthetics, and 44% of the ones that assaulted police officers were had synthetics in their tests. So.
Stand by, Chief, for just a moment, if you would, please. Most of you will see more of our conversation with D.C. Police Chief Kathy Lanier in just a moment. If you're watching After Dark, 2 more segments of our Q&A available online at news8newstalk.com.